Now, as we go, the first one, as you know, is just the moon, from neutral to moon, and it's always the same, just returning to neutral. Now, the second movement, when you get to the moon, and you're open to the true side, the sphere expands, and I said that we touch a point called sun, and then sun, it continues opening all the way through as it gets true side, and true side is the full opening of the two halves of my being. And it's called true side because it's not above the shoulder, it's not below the shoulder. It's the perfect point of the centralization of your heart, from which then you return back to the moon in order to descend back into neutral. The third movement, you're going back to the moon, and now as you go to the upper diagonal and you touch infinity, which is the connection that we rendered in the first section, and as you continue in the floor all the way up, this connection of upper diagonal, it releases the length of the neck and allows the neck and the shoulders to open at the same time that engages the totality of the rib cage. So it's a perfect connection, and you will begin to discover that if you go too close in it, you take away the neck, elongation of the neck, and then you miss the metrics. So the skeleton is not fully engaged. So this is called upper diagonal, from which you return to the moon, and then from the moon you descending, and then to neutral, moon, and lower diagonal. And when you get to the lower diagonal, you tag the connection called crown, as I said, and then you continue with the motion to get to the lower diagonal. And the lower diagonal, by the nature of the diagonal extension, it releases the rib cage and under your arm, and it engages the neck and the shoulder completely again, because you will notice again that if you come too close to you, then the neck loses its length and no longer the engagement of the rib cage takes place. So all these places, upper diagonal, true side, lower diagonal, are places of engagement of the skeleton and the connections that allows you to begin to find internal length in the centers. Okay, so let's do it again and just notice now the placement of the upper diagonal, true side, and lower diagonal. Here we are, 0 point neutral, 5, 6, 7, 8, outflowing wave to the moon, and then from the moon descending 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, going to moon 2, 3, 4, now true side 2, 3, and this is the sun right here. Now we continue expanding, 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 and the last point of extension and your fingers right here returns and encircle the sphere back to moon, from which it changes directions to inflowing the wind. 6, 7, 8. Now the third movement arrives to moon right here, and now enter the diagonals, and it touches infinity, which is right here. And now the diagonal respect the neck, the shoulders, the rib cage. This is the transversal connections of your being. 8, and now 1, 2, 3, and that is the moon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and now we go into the moon for the last movement. 3 and 4, 1, 2, 3, and that will be the equivalent of crown, and continue. And the diagonal, you see, it engages under your arms, the rib cage, the neck, the head. So I'm extending all the way up to the top of the head, returning back into the moon, 3 and 4, and now descending. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We would like to clarify that in the true side, when you go from the moon, the second movement, you go true side, the palm of your hands are facing up, yeah? And then when you go to the upper diagonal, also the palms of the hands are facing all the way up. And as you come back to the moon again, and descending, and going back to neutral. And the last movement is different a little bit, because from the moon, you're opening the movement through the lower diagonal, and your hands are facing down all the way in this direction, right here. Now, when you're coming back from here, you go like maybe 3 inches from the floor by extending the movement before the movement turns into become a sphere again. So this is an arc, it's an extension, an arc, and it becomes circular, returning to the moon right there before it returns back into the connection of neutral. I would like to explain also that because we are on the floor and we are horizontal, in our relationship to gravity and expansion is different because of the placement, as I said, in the floor. We can do movements that are a little bit more extreme. And what I mean by that, that in the second movement, for example, when you get to the moon and you open the sphere and you arrive to sun, that will be the last point of balance of the movement. From then on, as we keep extending, it's an extreme. And it means that we are opening much more than we just staying in balance. We are creating a larger extension in order to return back to the moon. The same in the upper diagonal. When on the moon, the last point of balance is infinity, which is in here. As we continue back all the way, we can do it as again because we're on the floor. It's an extreme, and then from the extreme we'll return to moon as we descending back to neutral. And in the last movement, crown will become the last point right here. And then as we continue extending all the way through, we are opening the front and the back of the spine in that extension. So we call it extremes because are not from that point of sun, infinity, and crown is balance. From then on is an awareness and an overextension of the body in order to provide a strength and opening. Also, clarifying the first movement, going to the outflowing way to the moon, and then the inflowing way back to neutral. The path of going from the moon to the inflowing way to neutral have 4 different movements expressing 4 different places within the path of balance. Remember in the first section when we're going back to crown, and then the inflowing wave returning to neutral has the sphere of earth, inflowing wave has suspended balance, and descending ascending. So it has all these spiral movements to bring you back to neutral. The same is in this case. You're going back to moon, from neutral to moon, and now from here you have a path that it has 4 different nuances. The first nuance of the movement is called moving horizon. The second movement is gathering the spiral. The third nuance is gliding, and the fourth nuance is settling into balance. So there are 4 different names, and I would like to tell the names in you. So this 8 counts is divided in 2, 2, 2, and 2, and the reason for these nuances in the path is because as you begin to discover the spiral and the changes that occur within the path, you allow the center of your heart to remain open and the 7 centers to be open. Because if you're innocently or without knowing, you bring in from the moon, you come down to neutral in a linear form, then everything is mashed, and then the center closes and the connection to the 7 centers is no longer there. So remember that the path of balance and the nuances and all of the movements of unity and motion within the path of balance is to maintain the 7 centers always interconnected and always simultaneously open. Okay? So I would like to do the motion again of neutral to moon and to moon to neutral a few times, and keep telling you the different names of the path of balance. Now, we're just telling you this. Eventually all this will become very easy for you. You're just beginning to understand all these names. It may seem a little bit complex, but eventually it will help you because your mind begins to develop an understanding of the change within the path of balance, within the change with the 8 counts of the inflowing wave. Okay? So here we go. to neutral. Remember that you're extending through the spine, releasing the neck, connecting the coccyx. 5, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Moving horizon. 2, gathering the spiral. 4, gliding. 6, settling. 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 counts to go to moving horizon. 2 counts to gather the spiral. 2 counts to glide, and 2 counts to settle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Moon. 1, 2, 3. Gathering the spiral. 4. Gliding. 6. Settling. 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. This is the second movement. This is the third movement. And this is the fourth movement. This is one movement. 2, 3, moon. The first part of the movement here. The second part of the movement here. The third part of the movement here. The fourth part of the movement there. And now we'll do it twice more without no words. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, moon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This movement going from neutral to moon and from moon to neutral in reality is a circle, just as it was the first movement that you learned in the first section. Remember, in the first section you go from foundation all the way up to crown, and then from crown you return all the way down from the inflowing wave back to neutral. So the energy unfolds in the outflowing wave and it returns back into the inflowing wave. So you are inside of a circle in which you are ascending and descending continuously, not only in your spine, but also in the energy of your arms, going all the way to the length of the movement, returning inside of the movement back into foundation. The same is in this movement going from neutral to moon and from moon to neutral. You unfold the wave into moon, and then from moon you create a circle to return back into neutral. And when you get to the last frame of returning to neutral, is the beginning of going to the moon again. So moon, and then descending and the inflowing wave to neutral. The last frame becomes a circle. So it's not that you arrive and then you're going out again. It's that the arrival becomes the beginning, the completion becomes the continuation becomes the beginning. So you're beginning to understand perpetual motion, meaning that every single movement connects to the next movement, not as a harmonic way of moving, but as an internal interconnection of energy as well. Okay, so we're going to do now one more time neutral to moon for a while so you can see the circle. Five, 6, 7, 8, outflowing wave. 2, 3, 4, moving horizon, gathering the spiral, gliding, settling. This is the last frame right here, and it goes back to moon again. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, last frame, beginning the frame. 2, 3, completing the moon, changing directions to the sun. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the beginning. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last time. 8, going to moon. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wonderful. As you begin to practice the movements, you become familiar with the four movements and the perpetual motion and all the different details that you are incorporating in the motions. You may discover, as you become more and more connected to the movement, that there are certain places that you innocently hold, because all of a sudden you may start holding with your throat and your jaw. So begin to awaken to the perception that you are beginning to let it go in certain places, especially the neck, especially the jaw, also the mind, because in the beginning you will notice that the mind is accustomed to pay attention by holding attention. And little by little, as you become more connected to the fluidity of the movement, you begin to recognize that you can pay attention by letting the mind release. So the mind is not holding in order for you to know that you're doing it right. Remember, this is not about doing it right. It's about exploring and encountering fluidity. And as you allow yourself and you surrender to the fluidity and the placement, you will discover, oh, my eyes are doing something strange, my throat is really holding, I'm holding my breath, my knees are rubbing, my lower back is a little bit of pain. So be free as you're moving to change and move and begin to discard places in your awareness that you notice they are providing holding.